Also, thank you to all the organizers of this event. I bring greetings and my heartfelt condolences on behalf of the NDP caucus and Saskatchewan's New Democrats. Alongside all Saskatchewan people, we share in your sense of grief and concern for the people of Ukraine. This is not a war. It's a brutal invasion of a free and democratic people by an authoritarian thug. In response to this yesterday, the Saskatchewan NDP Provincial Council unanimously passed an emergency resolution to fully support and stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. On Friday, Ryan Miley, as leader of the official opposition, wrote a letter to our Premier calling for unity and collaboration to the Saskatchewan Ukrainian Relations Advisory Committee to include all members of the Legislative Assembly to facilitate the work to support those impacted by the crisis, the settlement of refugees, and coordinate needed financial and humanitarian support. My heart is heavy. Watching the events unfold in Ukraine, the situation is devastating. So many of us are personally touched by these tragic events. I had the great privilege to travel to Ukraine in the summer of 2019 as an election observer in their general elections following President Zelensky's election. 2 days ago, I contacted my translator in the city of Sumy in eastern Ukraine to ensure hers and her family's safety. Thankfully, they are safe thus far, although their city has been seized and they live under authoritarian rule. Yesterday, I learned about my relatives who live outside Lviv, near the border with Poland, and whom I only know distantly, but they are fine. However, a young nephew who recently turned 18 is waiting to be called up to serve. As a mother, my heart breaks for him and his family. And so it touches me personally, as it does all of us. As we think of our fellow men and women, the young and old, experiencing this tragedy from one end of the country to the other. I think of the beautiful city of Kyiv, where I was stationed briefly in all its magnificence under attack, and of the uprising in 2014, and my heart aches for a people who only want to possess their sovereignty as a free and democratic society. I think of how lucky we are to live in this great country. So many of us, descendants of settlers from foreign countries, fleeing poverty and persecution. Of how fortunate we are to be able to live in relative prosperity, sharing this land as treaty people in a relationship that we are only now beginning to reconcile through the TRC calls to action. As the events of the past month here in Canada have demonstrated so clearly, democracy is fragile. It takes work, and it should never be taken for granted. As we come together to express our solidarity with Ukraine and pray for peace and the spirit of a nation so bravely emboldened and embodied by their leader, President Zelensky, let us not forget that we are all one in this humanitarian project of building a fair and just and democratic world. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress of Saskatchewan for organizing these events throughout the province. Let us continue to work together and show our support for humanitarian efforts in Ukraine, support their defense and do all we can to bring this brutal invasion as quickly as possible to an end and without further human loss and destruction. Solidarity with Ukraine. Thank you.